Now, how exactly do you invest once you've actually retired? And if you're watching this video and you're watching me for the first time, you probably don't know me. My name is TommyBryson, and I don't look like your average retiree because I'm not in my 50s or 60s. I'm actually not even 30 yet, but I just retired about 2 years ago. And the answer is not because I came across an inheritance or because I have some fancy job that paid me $1 million. It's not that. It's just that because I've been doing this for the past decade almost, and I've basically live on very little money, so I don't need as much money as you think I actually do to actually retire. I'm married and we spend about $1,200 here, and I figured out a long time ago that the less money you actually need, well, the less you actually need to work and the less time you actually need. So that's how I figured out my whole retirement. And the way I invest today is a lot more different than I invested back in the day. And I think that most people that actually retire share the same fears, which is basically spending way too much money to the point where you run out of money, or not spending enough money to the point where you accumulate too much money. And lastly, the fear of, am I investing into the wrong things, where basically there could be a massive issue and I have to go back to work because I will no longer have enough money than I thought I actually did. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to address these things and hopefully you actually are helped by it. Okay, so do me a favor and actually smash the like button. It helps a lot with the channel and I appreciate it a ton. And let's get right into it. The very first thing, guys, is that there are 3 factors when it comes to investing once you actually retire, and that's going to be your asset class, what you're actually investing into, your age, how old you are, and lastly, how much money do you have invested versus how much money you actually need. I'm gonna go over each of these step by step, and hopefully the end goal is that every single person watching this video actually understands. Now, the first factor is going to be your asset class. What exactly are you invested into? Now, I truly do believe that diversification is a waste of time unless you don't know exactly what you're doing, and also you actually just want to do it because it makes you feel better about your investments. I really do believe that although some things are not optimal as far as for the numbers, if it does keep you invested and it gives you a lot of confidence, then just continue doing it either way. But for me, I only have one investment, and that one investment is just into the S&P 500. That's where I put literally 100% of all my stock money is just into that one investment. I have it both as an index fund and also as an ETF. More on that on other videos that I actually have. But the general idea is I started investing this way once I figured out that basically, well, the S&P 500 is not just invested into one class. No, it's invested across 11 to 12 different sectors when it comes to REITs, when it comes to technology, when it comes to a lot of different types of companies. And these companies do business not just in the US, but globally. And once you get that, you're like, well, I'm diversified enough. Like, why do I need to be invested across so many places? And this way, my investments are actually a lot simple and easy to actually manage and very low fee. Now, here's the fear that everyone basically has. Tommy, what if the US goes down, you lose everything? The answer is that doesn't scare me, because if I lose everything because the US went down, most likely everyone is going to lose something because the US went down. The biggest fear is basically, I read in the past about a Great Depression that actually happened. I think we're going through a depression in a sense, so I've been through depression in my generation, but the real depression actually happened back then when it lasted about 25 years for the market to actually recover to what it originally actually was. So that could possibly happen. Imagine, for example, you have $1 million that took you about 20 to 30 years to actually accumulate, and now all of a sudden we have a big market crash of like 50%. Now that means you go from $1 million to 500K and it stays there for about 25 years. Well, what exactly are you supposed to do? The answer is you're kind of screwed. You got to go back to work because the income you thought you were going to get is cut down basically in half. That's the idea. You see what I'm saying here? So here's the solution I kind of came up with when it comes to this, okay? I still do believe that my investments are right. Just invested when it comes to stocks into the S&P 500. But I need some cash on hand every single month coming in to actually subdue that fear of, well, what if it crashes and it stays crashed for a long time? I believe that the market is going to recover because it has from every single market crash ever, okay? So most likely that's going to happen. And if it doesn't, well, what does it matter anyways, okay? I know I kind of sound like when I'm talking about investments that it's like, well, what happened happens. No, the truth is that if the US goes down, what can you do about it? You can't really do anything. If the market crashes and never recovers, what can you do about it? Nothing, okay? So I tend not to worry about things that I can't control, and I tend to put my focus on the things that I can control. So for me personally, what I came up with is basically investing into rental property. So once I have, for example, a paid off home that I'm going to build or basically buy, because right now I have the cash because I sold my last home and that cash is still available to me, but I don't know exactly where I want to buy, where I want to build, so I'm figuring that out right now. But once I have that, what I'm going to do with my income and the money that comes in from my investments is I'm going to save it up and I'm going to use that money to actually buy rental property. Now, the math in my area is that for every 60,000 or for every $1 I invest, I get about a 6% return or 7% return. That means for every $100, I get about $6 to $7. That's the idea. So if I invest about $60,000 to buy, for example, a unit here, well, that's going to be around an income of about $300 to $400 every single month. Now, is my idea to get, for example, $2,000 in real estate money every single month coming in? The answer is no. That would be a lot of time, a lot of capital, a lot of work, okay? So what I come up with is basically this, okay? I have my stock investments here. If I can just pull in about $600 from my real estate investments, about 120K in investments by doing that whole math thing I just did, the answer is that basically gives me a margin of almost a 40% drop when it comes to the stock market. Because again, if I'm producing an extra $600 outside of the stock market, if the market does drop by like 30 to 40% and I'm no longer able to pull in that $600 from the market, the answer is I'm making that money from real estate so I can withstand a big drop for years and years to come. And since the market and real estate are actually not that together, because people will still pay their rent, and if they don't pay their rents, they get evicted, especially here. It's not like the US where people, to get them evicted is like a whole process. Here is like, hey, you're evicted, goodbye. You know, that's how it kind of works here. But that's the idea I actually came up with. So here's my advice. Find an investment, okay? If you're in your retirement age and you have just enough to cover your expenses from the stock market, find another investment, whether it's real estate, whether it's a business, something else that's mostly passive, I would recommend, to make you that extra money. And then that way you can withstand a market drop. Now, the second point here, guys, is going to be age. I discriminate when it comes to investments in age. I really do. I wouldn't tell someone that's in their 80s to invest how I would tell someone that's like 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. Most people can just get away with just investing into the S&P 500, but people that are a lot older can't really get away with it, okay? Because you don't have as much time to actually recover. And if you do fail and you have time to recover, you might not even have the will to try to recover because you just worked for like 40 years. Come on, right? So that's the idea. Now, for anyone that is actually a lot older and a lot younger, I will give this advice to both of you, okay? And here's why. This advice is basically lower the amount of money you need. Now, notice what I'm saying here. I am saying need, okay? Let's say you're in your 70s and you just retired, okay? And you have an income of about $3,000 and you're telling me, Tommy, I need $3,000 a month to stay retired. The answer is I would figure out a way to lower the amount of money you actually need. For example, okay, I can spend about $1,200 a month here, living here in Dominican Republic, but I only need about $900 to $800, okay? That's my need. So if things get bad in the market and we have a massive drop, I can basically cut my expenses down to $800 to $900, and that way I'm not really that worried. But if I need exactly $1,200 every single month and the market goes down, I'm going to be in deep trouble. Same thing if you need $3,000 a month and now the market drops by like half and now you're only getting $1,500, you're going to be in trouble. So here's some advice and some ways to actually cut down your cost of living, and that's going to be by staying away from debt and also, for example, having a paid off home. These two things massively changes the amount of money you need. Now, let's say per month you have income coming in of about $3,000, for example. Can you spend that? The answer is yes. But what I would recommend is make sure your needs are way below that, okay? So yes, between shelter, utilities, groceries, transportation, healthcare, and some things here and there, I spend about $1,500, Tommy, or $2,000, Tommy. But I get about $3,000, $4,000 from my retirement stuff, so I spend that too. The answer is that's fine, because if the market does drop by half, you still have enough money that can come in to actually take care of you. That is the idea. Now, if you're a lot younger, my ideal will still be the same. Work up to having a paid off home, work up to basically having no debt, and then just keep investing and just build up to it, okay? That's the whole idea. So when you do get to that age of like whether you do it in 10, 15 years, depending on how you actually buy a home, the answer is you have such low costs of living where you don't have to have as much money as you think you do. And that's a good thing, because to have more money takes more time, time you can't get back, and money is like something you could always just print more of, okay? That's the whole idea for another day. But here's the third thing I want to talk about, and that's going to be how much money you need versus how much money you actually have. If you have double or triple the amount of money in your retirement account than the money you actually need to live, most likely you don't have to worry about much. If you have just enough money, then most likely you're going to have to look into diversification or invest in a lot more money in the stock market. But I really wouldn't want to have all my eggs in that just one basket. That's just me personally. Now, let's say, for example, it's very important, if you have, for example, a lot of cash invested and your cost of living is not that high, and you're able to invest money, for example, in a bond and at 4%, and you have 2 million bucks, and that can make you $80,000 a year. The answer is, would you do that? Me personally, I would do it in a heartbeat. Again, I told you, not all of my decisions are going to be based on optimization for numbers, because I know my biggest return can come basically from the stock market. I know 2 million can make me about $200,000 from the stock market, while 2 million at a 4% can make me about $80,000 if I'm not mistaken. 200K versus 80K, but there's a massive difference. If you just put that money in the stock market, you can have a massive drop, and that income goes from 200K to 50K, 80K, something like that, okay? But if you have it in a bond, that's like the closest thing to no risk, and if that's the exact amount of money you actually need to live, then that's more than enough, okay? So when you actually get to be having a lot of money, you have to consider exactly how much money you need and where you're actually going to get the best bang for your buck. Me being as young as I am right now, which I am aware of, I'm able to get away with just leave my money in the S&P 500 and letting that money work for me for like the next 30, 40 years and build up to even more cash, while I'm also diversifying into other asset classes, but for the most part, not having to work as much as I do anymore, okay? Which is massive. Now, that's it for this video. But if you're still watching to this point, there's something I want to tell you, okay? When you do reach retirement, and if you have been retired for a long time, you might be asking me, Tommy, if you're retired, then why do you still work? The answer is, I work, but I don't work as much as I used to, because I no longer have to work for wages. I don't have to work for money. I enjoy what I do here, and that's why I do it. I don't see retirement as a Hollywood movie where you basically just retire and now you're literally like in Florida all day playing bingo. I find that so boring. I do like having things to do, but I also work in my church. I also work on my family. I also work on things like that. Work is not just trading time for money. Work is finding something that's purposeful and gives you meaning. That's something I learned by reading a book called Your Money or Your Life by Vicky. Such a great book. That's it. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe for more videos like these. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.